All right, thank you. Hello, hello, and welcome to another Rush Generations Health Education lecture. As you know, Rush Generations and our staff is always delighted to be your source of information, resources, and health promotion programs that help maximize your well-being and good health as you age. Today is Wednesday, July 17, 2024. I'm Grisel Rodriguez Morales, Rush Generations Program Director, and I'll be your moderator for today's lecture, Spiritual Wellness and Aging. Before I present to you the wonderful speakers joining us today, I'd like to first thank Hannah Weitzman for helping with the production of this lecture. She's the producer of our lectures, helping us manage the chat, also other key aspects, so that we'll have a great discussion today. As you know, we are live streaming this lecture via our YouTube channel, where we have dozens of other health education lectures that you can always refer to. Please feel free to let friends, family, colleagues know about our channel and any of the other lectures that we've offered, so that they can also benefit from the valuable information that our speakers offer every other week through our Rush Generations program. We are using the video platform Zoom, which also allows us to host a good number of people who join us via phone. And today we also have a few colleagues from Rush joining as well via YouTube, via Zoom. For those of you on YouTube, we ask that you please use the chat function to ask questions, or to add to the discussion throughout the lecture. We will make sure that your comments and the questions make it to our presenters. And for those of you listening to the discussion via phone, so audio only, you will also have an opportunity at the end to unmute your audio so that you can ask your questions. We greatly appreciate you joining us today. Always, we like to remind you that all the information offered here is for general informational purposes. And always, we encourage you to seek additional professional advice for situations that are very specific to you and needs in terms of feelings or any other symptoms. But without further ado, I'd like to then welcome our speakers today. Let me start with Sarah McEnvoy, who is the convener or co-convener of the Elder Care Research Network for Transforming Chaplaincy at Rush University Medical Center. She served as a licensed nursing home administrator for 35 years and is currently working toward board certification as a healthcare chaplain. Sarah holds a master's in divinity from Liberty Theological Seminary and a Juris Doctorate from Western State University College of Law. And in her free time, Sarah enjoys being on the water and spends the winter cruising the intercoastal waterway to Florida, which is pretty cool. Then we'll also have today Stan McCracken, who is a STEAM retired social worker who taught at the University of Chicago. Do we have his slide? Excellent, thank you. So Stan is a retired social worker who taught at the University of Chicago and has over 40 years experience as a clinician, educator, and consultant. He currently is on the board of directors of Lake County Veterans and Family Services and leading the Unitarian Universalist Services at Great Lakes Naval Training Center. He has written about psychiatric rehabilitation, addiction, behavioral pharmacology, aging, motivational interviewing, and staff training. And his current practice interest is supporting healers like us here at Rush, who work with refugees and immigrants, especially with veterans, older adults, and individuals in behavioral health and medical settings. And he's a consultant with staff at different organizations, including our Department of Social Work and Community Health here at Rush. So welcome to you both. It's our pleasure to have you both here. I'll hand it back to you so that we can start this fabulous conversation.
Thank you very much, Grizel. Welcome, everyone, and thank you for being here today. As was mentioned, my name is Sarah McAvoy, and Stan and I are really looking forward to engaging in a conversation with you today about spirituality and wellness, or spiritual wellness and aging. Stan, next slide.
Okay, let's see if I can get this. Come on. Okay. Okay, I may need to start over and, okay, do this here. Does somebody have a grandchild that they can loan me? It's always a concern when you have someone that looks like me operating technology.
You're good. You're good.
Oh, yay, we do have it. Okay, good.
There you go.
Well done.
Our first slide, for those of you not seeing it, is a picture of Keith Richards. And we need to start worrying about what kind of world we're going to leave for Keith Richards. He's one of the few people that looks a little bit better now than he did 50 years ago. No.
You'll hear throughout our program Stan's lovely sense of humor, and I hope you enjoy it as much as I do. So first, we want to talk a little bit about whole person health. Whole person health is person-centered. It's a person-centered approach to healthcare. It really takes into account all the factors that affect a person's well-being. Things like their physical health, behavioral health, social and environmental factors, biological makeup, all sorts of things go into understanding whole person health. It focuses on restoring health, promoting resilience, and preventing disease across the lifespan, rather than just treating a specific disease. So spirituality is part of whole person health. Next slide, Stan.
Okay. And one of the things that people have paid attention to along these lines with whole person health is the benefits of therapeutic lifestyle changes. And Roger Walsh did a study a number of years ago looking at lifestyle and mental health, because people weren't spending much time on that. And what he found is that these lifestyle changes can be both effective and cost effective. And some can, such as exercise for depression, use of fish oils to prevent psychosis in high-risk youth, may be as effective as pharmacotherapy or psychotherapy for some people. Lifestyle changes are free of stigma and can even confer social benefits and self-esteem. They also can offer secondary benefits like improvements in physical health, self-esteem, and quality of life. Some therapeutic lifestyle changes like exercise, diet, meditation may be neuroprotective. In other words, they may protect the brain and reduce the risk of subsequent age-related cognitive losses and corresponding neural shrinkage. Many, such as meditation, relaxation, recreation, and spending time in nature, are enjoyable and may therefore become healthy, self-sustaining habits. Many not only reduce mental health problems, but can also enhance health and well-being. And we have made available to you a table that I put together from this Roger Walsh paper. It's a checklist, and you'll notice there are two sheets. The first sheet is small, and when I initially did this, I was in the process of training medical students, residents, and social work students. And so they're made to fit in like a lab coat. And the other one is for people like me who wearing bifocals that are printed a little bit larger. That's a checklist. And the idea is to try to hit at least 2 or 3 of these each day, including exercise, paying attention to nutrition, healthy nutrition and diet, spending time in nature, spending time with other people, recreation. And I know that some of you are thinking, for someone from having fun, from somebody from University of Chicago where fun goes to die. But no, actually, recreation, we like fun. Relaxation and stress management, religious or spiritual involvement, and service to others.
So you'll notice when Stan was talking about the lifestyle changes, one of the categories was religion or spirituality. And before we start talking more in depth about spirituality, I thought some definitions might be in order. It's so important to have a common language when we talk about something like spirituality. And frankly, it's quite tough to define. So what I'm going to do is share a couple of the definitions that come to us out of the research literature. And this first definition was recently published in a journal of the American Medical Association. The study looked at the role of spirituality in serious illness and a wide range of health outcomes. The study concluded with recommendations to incorporate spiritual care into medical care for serious illness and to incorporate patient-centered and evidence-based approaches that support spiritual community and health. So this definition is spirituality, while encompassing beliefs and practices of religious communities, extends beyond religion to include how ultimate meaning, purpose, and transcendence can arise through, for example, vocation, family, or nature. Also, some of those elements that Stan mentioned when he was looking at the lifestyle changes. So one more definition. This second definition adds some specificity, and it offers a way to understand how spirituality is expressed. It comes from the work of Dr. Christina Polsky, who is a physician at George Washington Institute for Spirituality and Health. So this definition is spirituality is a dynamic and intrinsic aspect of humanity through which persons seek ultimate meaning, purpose, and transcendence, and experience relationship to self, family, others, community, society, nature, and the significant or sacred. It's expressed through beliefs, values, needs, and practices. The key phrases in this definition that I love to pull out are meaning, purpose, transcendence, relationships, beliefs, values, and needs, and practices. I like this definition very much personally because it's broad enough to include religion. So I'd be curious what your feedback is about either definition, and maybe that's something we can talk about when we get to the discussion. Next slide, Stan.
Beginning of awe is wonder, and the beginning of wisdom is awe. Abraham Joshua Heschel. And as Sarah's already alluded, there are different kinds of spirituality. There is religious spirituality, and I'm guessing many of us on this call, like me, when I was a kid, a conversation about spirituality outside of religion wouldn't have made a lick of sense. And this is a kind, the religious spirituality is a sense of closeness and connection to the sacred as defined by a particular religion. And that's the kind that many of us grew up with, the kind that we're most familiar with. In addition, though, there are some others. Humanistic spirituality, the sense of connection to humankind, a sense of being related to or close to a general group of people, often brought about by love, altruism, or relation. And this is a sort of thing that sense of when you're with a group of people, you're especially like with your pursuing a common goal, you get that sense of connection with each other that almost feels like there's something in addition to just being with people. Oh, and again, we have a picture here of a little boy, a little toddler, a wee folk, as it were, holding a phone up to the ear, and he's saying, "So today at church, a guy in a suit tried to drown me, and I kid you not, my family just stood there taking pictures." little people are so put upon. Goodness. Okay. Uh, nature spirituality. And this is a sense of connection to the environment or nature. And I would share experience of mine. You know how if you are outside walking around and you hear a group of a flock of geese going over your head, a gaggle of geese, as it were, flying over, and you hear them, you can look up and point, oh, there they are, because you can, the sound locates the geese. With cranes, and what I'm most familiar with is sandhill cranes, you can't do that. And if you hear cranes migrating, it sounds like the whole universe is making that sound. It sounds like it's just coming, it sounds like it's coming from the world. And if they're flying over, unless they're coming right over top of you, you may have a hard time locating them. I know I do. But when I hear that sound, I always start looking for them. And sometimes I see where they are, and sometimes it takes a while. But that sense that nature is just, it's making that sound. Cosmos spirituality is similar. It's a sense of connection with creation, maybe stimulated by the thinking of the magnificence and almost endless boundaries of creation, or by gazing into the night sky, seeing the billions of stars and contemplating the nature of the cosmos. And again, a story from my youth. I grew up in Eastern Oregon, essentially a desert part of Oregon, and we irrigated. And so when I would get up as a kid and change the water like at 2 in the morning or midnight or something, I grew up on a farm, so there wasn't, light pollution. There wasn't ambient light around. And I'd look up into the sky and see that. And if you had that experience where you look up at the sky and it almost seems like there's movement, it almost seems like you're rotating or something, that's that sense of wonder that people have of contemplating the cosmos. Nature spirituality almost often makes a person feel insignificant as an individual, but united with the remainder of the cosmos. And again, with some of these, it almost seems like I've disappeared and become part of the experience. There are two more kinds. Those are fairly well accepted in the field, but two more kinds that I would argue types of spirituality. One of them is, oddly enough, is scientific spirituality. And if you hang around places where they're, high-powered, big-brain people in doing scientific work, and you hear them talking about their work, the language that they start using almost sounds like you're in a divinity school. And so scientific spirituality, a sense of reverence or awe for the laws or revelations of science or mathematics. For example, the working of the human body, the interaction of components of the natural world, the physics or chemistry of a cell. And again, the picture that I have here is the Fibonacci spiral in a sunflower. The Fibonacci sequence, some of you may be familiar with, is where you add numbers together, like 1 and 1 is 2, 2 plus 1 is 3, 3 plus 2 is 5, 5 plus 3 is 8, 8 plus 5 is 13, and you keep going on all the way up. And that sequence is replicated in the spiral of a sunflower, and it appears in a number of different places in nature. And that's one of those kind of things. It's like people will speak with a sense of awe when they talk about some of these scientific laws and revelations. And then the last one, I would argue, is artistic spirituality, a sense of connection to or being particularly moved by a piece of art or music. And sometimes one of these spiritualities overlap with religious spirituality, and this is a great example. This is a painting by Adam Pomeroy, and the painting is called The Annunciation. Now, reminder, the Annunciation was when the angel comes down and speaks to Mary and tells her that she's going to bear the Son of God. And we've probably all seen artistic renderings of the Annunciation, where there are from the medieval times and from the Renaissance, and where you have the angel and all the glowing clothes and everything. If you believe in that, this is probably what it looked like. We have a young woman, barely out of her teens, that has just been given this revelation. She's going to bear the Son of God, Can you imagine how she would feel? And for those of you who are listening and just audio, you might Google the Annunciation and Ennis Cathedral. If you Google Annunciation and Ennis Cathedral is in Ireland, that's where the painting is on loan now, and you'll see this painting and you'll see what I'm talking about, this sense of awe and frankly terror that she has in receiving this revelation. And cartoon here, I wasn't on ministers talking to one of the parishioners. I wasn't always as religious as I am now. For years, I thought the 10 Commandments were a doo-wop group from the 50s. So, back to Sarah.
Thank you, Stan. So Stan has taken us from the broad definitions of spirituality that I gave you to some specific examples of types of spirituality, which were wonderful. I love that picture of the Annunciation. I could stare at it for days and days. But now I'm going to shift us over a little bit to what the evidence says about the impact of spirituality on your health outcomes. A little bit like Stan talked about earlier with the changes that you can make in your life that will make a huge difference. So spirituality and health outcomes. The research shows that spirituality is helpful in coping with disease, specifically chronic illness, type 2 diabetes, cancer, those types of things. It also has an impact on quality of life. Spirituality creates a better quality of life. And of course, as you might imagine, spirituality has the outcome of making us more hopeful, a more hopeful people. I'd be interested in hearing anecdotal thoughts about how spirituality supports you in coping with illness. And perhaps that's something we can get to when we do our discussion in a little bit. Stan, do you want to move the slides forward for me? Perfect, thank you. So several researchers have found that both religion and spirituality provide a resource specifically to assist older adults in dealing successfully with stress. And these are the stresses associated with just challenging life circumstances. Things such as, perhaps transitioning into a nursing home, a new chronic diagnosis, or maybe a loss that occurs later in life. And again, I'd be curious to hear your stories about how religion and spirituality have given you resilience or a resource for coping. I'd love to share this research, this 2022 study by a nursing researcher at the University of Pennsylvania. This researcher, her name is Kat Britt. She traveled with her father on his journey and decided to delve further in and look at the correlation between increased frequency of private prayer and cognitive function. And she found that increased frequency of private prayer was significantly associated with neuropsychiatric symptoms, such as wandering or anxiety, aggression, or depression. It was also associated with lower sleep disturbances and better cognitive function in people living with dementia. A truly hopeful study for less focus on medication and more spiritual ways to cope with the symptoms of dementia. I love that study. Next slide, Stan. And finally, just another study done by Ellen Eidler. She talks about the religion as a social determinant of health. So social determinants of health are conditions in the environment where people who are born, where they live, work, play, worship, and age that affect a wide range of health, functioning, and quality of life outcomes. Her findings showed that religious participation, now the last study I talked about was private prayer. This one is focused on religious attendance and the impact of religious attendance on health outcomes. So what the study found is that religious attendance, people with religious attendance have social control of behavior. They're less likely to smoke, more likely to have moderate alcohol use or to get healthcare screenings. These folks are more likely to engage with social support networks, socializing with others, belonging to a community. And also the last finding, social capital. Folks with religious attendance are more likely to bond and bridge to other social and community institutions. So very interesting research literature that talks about the health benefits of spirituality and religion. Next slide. I love this quote. Stan shared this with me, and I just, it's pictured here with the cover of Viktor Frankl's book, Man's Search for Meaning. And the quote reads, "The process by which we reflect on our lives and reconcile our triumphs, successes with our defeats, losses, and coming to an understanding of self that holds both with equal comfort and calm acceptance of both as part of ourselves." The title of that slide is Create Meaning, and I just love that. Stan.
There are two ways to live your life. One is as though nothing is a miracle. The other is as though everything is. And I love this one. This is, I think, Iguazu Falls in South America, which is just spectacular.
So now we want to shift a little bit from more of the presentation of thoughts and ideas to opening up a conversation about cultivation of spiritual awareness. So we've talked about the benefits of spirituality, and now we want to look at how we can cultivate spiritual awareness. I know that the collective wisdom of the group that's on this call or on this Zoom has a lot to share in terms of spiritual practices that have served them well. And perhaps we can talk about a few, but let me give you a brief introduction to some of the ones that I'm familiar with. So here is a list, and there are many, many more of different spiritual practices. These are practices that are done or activities that are done to deepen your awareness of the sacred and the world around you. So things like forest bathing, meditation, lectio divina, praying, journaling, gardening. Now, some of these things, like gardening, for example, they may be ordinary activities that you can reframe and do with more intention, thus making them spiritual practices. Or you could take a concept like forest bathing that is designed as a spiritual practice and immerse yourself in nature in a very intentional way, as is described in this book that I pictured here. The forest bathing concept is just going into the forest and taking all of your senses into account in a very spiritual way. I live in the city, and there's a park not too far from me, and I can go and sit under a giant tree there and just sit on the bench, taking in that tiny little park, taking in nature, taking in creation. The smell of newly mown grass, the mulch that is laid out in the spring, the flowers as they bud and bloom, the sound of the wind through the leaves, touching a leaf or a flower. For me, the taste part is a little more challenging, and it always reminds me of that Ewell Gibbons commercial. Probably some of you are familiar with that. The 1970s, when he was selling grape nuts, and he's famous for saying, "Ever eat a pine tree? Many parts are edible." I haven't done that on my forest bathing journey, but I recommend forest bathing as a spiritual practice to you highly. Anything that you can do either with intent or something you can do specifically, Lectio Divina is another suggestion. So Stan, you were going to comment, please
Well, I
do.
was going to ask you to tell me about something I'd not heard of before, and that's use of a picture, using the picture as a focus of contemplation.
Well, much like the photo that you showed of the Annunciation. So actually sitting in front of a piece of artwork like that and putting yourself either into the picture. What was she feeling? What was she thinking? What's in the room around her? Really taking with intention the opportunity to enjoy artwork. Also, one of my favorite ways, and there are so many, depending on your faith tradition, if you have one, or pictures of the cosmos, if you have a cosmic spirituality. So many ways that you can sit in front of a picture and with great intent, not interrogate, but think about that artwork. It's a beautiful spiritual practice. Thank you for asking.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. One that I would like to share is one. This is doing a spiritual life map. And once again, for those of you who are audio only, what I'm showing is a picture of a life map that somebody drew that has it basically is a map that is a line that goes from the time of their birth and small childhood up to their current age, which in this particular person was 42. And along the way, there are different images and drawings of things. There's pictures of when the person was a child and looks like working out and swimming and skiing. And then there was a time when they were confused and dazed and felt overwhelmed, and a time when they didn't know which way to go and their arrows pointing in different directions. And what it says on here is, help God, I just can't make it. And then there was a time on their 29 years old, it says DOA, dead on arrival. They had an accident and were had actually died for a brief period of time on the operating table. Then there was a spiritual awakening, and they again bathed through the Holy Spirit, talked about spiritual strengths that they participated in, and then lost some family members and experienced the dark night of the soul. And then they got married when they were around 36, joined the Promise Keepers. And it's just basically, if you think of your life as a path, what were the things going along, happening spiritually on that path? This next one is a picture that looks like it's a similar kind of a path, but what the person did was they took images from the internet and pasted them onto this map. And there's some writing in the up in the corner. It says, in the cycle of nature, there's no such thing as victory or defeat. There's only movement. And they have a number of pictures that depict, there's some pictures of butterflies, pictures of looks like maybe goth things, as well as pictures taken from maybe a church or religious images, and faith, hope, love, the time that they went to school. Looks like they practiced yoga at some point, found a partner and got married. Okay. One of the courses that I taught at the School of Social Work at U of C was a course called Spirituality and Social Work Practice. And one of the things I ask my students to do is to do a spiritual life map. And some of the life maps that they came up with, some of them was like a line and just different writing on the line, but some of them could have been hung in a museum of modern art. They were, one of the images that came up fairly often was the tree of life, where they had roots in childhood and then the branches that were going out. Others were actually abstract and were groups of colors and splashes of color. Others were photos and pictures that they'd cut out of magazines or pictures from family albums. And seeing how, and these are students, I should remind you, that are graduate students in social work. So they're people that are in their mid to late 20s all the way to in their 40s, because we have a lot of career changers in social work. And having people, doing a life map and looking at your journey, not verbally, but artistically and visually, can sometimes be a very interesting way of looking at the path of your life. Another one is looking at your life as a river. And there are places where the river runs smoothly and placidly. There are places where it runs very fast. There are places where there are rocks that the river has to go around. And conceptualizing life that way is one of the ways that people have done this. Okay, and there's another picture here. And there's a picture of a little toddler and what looks like a German Shepherd puppy with his paw on top of the toddler's head. It says, "I dub thee my best friend forever." So spending time with little people and pets is great. It's good for the soul. And but you know what they say, every minute spent petting a dog adds a minute to your life. So
true. So we had asked Hannah to share some journaling prompt questions with you. And I just wanted to share that research has shown that journaling has a positive effect over time on the ability of, for example, nurses to handle stress, to increase compassion, satisfaction, to decrease burnout and the trauma of compassion fatigue. So journaling has been studied as a way to cultivate spiritual awareness and or to decrease the dark side of the stresses in life that we all run into. Journaling about stressful events affects cognitive processing and emotional expression. Journaling is often used for people to reflect areas of personal growth. Those of you who took some time to respond to these prompts, I do wish or hope that you might be comfortable unmuting and sharing your thoughts about the impact of this practice, especially if you've never done it before, and or if you are a long-time journaler. I know people who do journaling regularly and say they couldn't get through the day without writing in their journal. I'll jump in for those of you who are shy. I did some journaling, and I must have been channeling life maps or art because I answered the prompt, who are your spiritual mentors? And it turned out to just be the picture of a tree. And in the tree, I wrote the people in my life that have had an impact on me from a spiritual standpoint. At the roots of the tree are my mother and father, of course, with the foundation of faith that they gave me. And then the trunk has my grandmother, who just inspired me to go deeper into my faith tradition. So all throughout the tree, I was answering the prompt, who are my spiritual mentors? And I drew, I don't know if you can see this, but it's just a little tree. I drew the tree and started putting people within the branches, and then just wrote a word about why they were a spiritual mentor. And I have to say, after I did that, I was filled with the sense of gratitude. So I would encourage anyone who has done any journaling or any other of these practices to please feel comfortable unmuting and sharing about your spiritual practice.
And finally, Waldo finds himself. And then we have a picture here of swans and cranes. And that's, a beautiful picture. And I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing now, and we can begin to have some chat. So I think I'm turning it over to Grizel.
Thank you so much. Yeah, no, this is a conversation, and now we are waiting for those in joining us via our YouTube channel to also be chiming in, especially around the questions that Sarah asked at the end about journaling. But also, we always give an opportunity to those joining via audio only to unmute yourself. That's *6. And you can have not only a chance to respond to that prompt, but also to ask questions. And I see somebody ready to speak.
Hi. Good evening, afternoon, each and every one of you all. My name is Constance Hatchett, and journaling for me spiritually is the connection with God as a relationship to situations that things have happened in my life to see the pros and the cons of what spirituality has to hold within my inside out.
That's beautiful,
Thank you.
Constance.
You're welcome.
And we had somebody also answering the question saying that my source of strength is my walks, my love of nature, and being so close to the lake. And I wanted to start there because I mean, I greatly appreciate everything that you presented. You in particular, that expansion of the definition of spirituality, because absolutely we many times go to religious spirituality. But that expansion in terms of the humanistic, the nature, the scientific, artistic, you know, I could see how those gives us a sense of awe, of wonder, which happens not only within the divine, but that expansion, I guess that helps us in different ways. And one of them is on, you know, it allows us to expand then also on the ways that we incorporate spirituality into our overall, into our lives, which, as you said, Sarah, then it contributes to our overall health. You know, it's important to know the different types of spirituality, as you also ask us to reflect on that question that you asked, which was how our spirituality then supports our wellness and our overall health. Yeah, I just love that expansion, and wanted to know if there was anybody else that wanted to say something about that. I see somebody unmuting as well.
Yes, hello everyone. My name is Franco, and thank you for you both to share so openly with us, and being inclusive of what spirituality means for overall wellness. I think that definitely resonated with me as well. I think my biggest strength sometimes in finding spirituality is in the humanity of my colleagues, and in the workplace, seeing how looking at events holistically, looking at the community that we serve in a holistic way is inspiring, and then sometimes just gives me that little oomph when you're having just a meh kind of day. And so I think that resonated for me as far as reflection goes, and then personally, I think that the connection to nature is another big one for me to find sources to de-stress. Water, I'm a huge water person that loves hearing water either trickling or really love hearing waves. So I love seeing sometimes just when we have a little bit of weather in Chicagoland, our beautiful mighty Lake Michigan, creating some beautiful noise and showing how we're all, to me, it's just such a great source of connection to the space around me, and just seeing how much joy that brings and energy to all those that are just running the lake or bicycling the lake. And like, there's such a draw and power to nature. So for me, I find a lot of strength from that. And mentors would be folks like my grandmother, who I think just instilled in spirituality. She was Catholic, but I think she's instilled in spirituality, I think, in a humanistic way of just seeing folks and being open-minded, which I was very grateful at an early age.
Franco, Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate your comments so much. I'm always amazed at how many people put nature as where they find their grounding and see it as a very spiritual experience. So I appreciate you sharing that, especially around the lake. I think the other thing is nature gives us such a way to use all 5 of our senses. You know, we can just be awash in nature and experience it. So thank you for sharing that.
And
Thank
it's
you.
amazing how many world religions and faith traditions, water is this universal image for spirituality. Yeah.
Right,
Absolutely.
because water is a tranquility which take you to a peace in your mind. So it's a healing in the mind and in the body as well.
It's lovely.
Yeah, I have a couple comments that came from the YouTube channel as well, but I must say, Sarah, when you were talking about the forest bathing, I also remember I am from Puerto Rico and we have an annual celebration and an annual tradition in which we are basically celebrating Saint John the Baptist's birthday. And exactly at midnight between June 23 and 24th, which is the birthday, on the eve of his birth, then we walk backward into the ocean and fall backwards into it. Some people do it 3 times, others 7 because 7 is a lucky number. But the whole concept is about the water being said to be blessed. So dipping into it is supposed to clean us of bad things or bringing good luck. And we do that in community. I just actually was there for my mother's 81st birthday and I celebrated it. And it was so cool to, you know, be shoulder and shoulder and then falling backwards with those that you love. So that's why I was also spending a lot of attention into the different types of spirituality and the nature and the cosmos. All of that was fantastic for me to hear. So, but we have some comments in the chat. It says, I continue to journal and reading my Bible for strength, growth, and hope. There's another person who says, I have a small forest around my home in Virginia and have found myself spending more time out there. Didn't know that it was forest bathing, but it helps with grief from the recent death of my husband. Faith-based religious rituals help as well. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I was going to say something we probably didn't touch on was just the power of ritual and the need for ritual within our lives. And frankly, you reminded me of it, the simple ritual of laying down my name badge when I get home from work, that my day is over, my spirit can move into my home now, and I can leave those things from my day behind. Simple rituals that are thresholds that we cross that change our spirit from either one place or one condition to the next. So yeah, ritual is another beautiful spiritual practice. The simple act of lighting a candle.
Those liminal experiences,
yes.
Transitioning from one thing to another. So many rituals are liminal experiences. Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you. Well, when you were talking about the mentors, I remember when I was a small child, my dad one time, I went to an evangelical church, grew up in an evangelical church, and my dad pointed to a lady and said, she's very wise. And I remember as a little kid, I used to watch her and try to see if I could catch her doing something wise. I remember one time I was in her house and she was knitting, and I think she had dozed off. And I asked, well, what are you doing? And she said, I'm counting my blessings.
That's a great story. Oh.
Right on, Franco. Oh, can everybody see Franco's comment?
I will read it. I love that explanation that rituals can happen without even knowing that we create them in our everyday life.
Mhm.
Mm.
Absolutely.
For
Well,
me,
thank you.
it goes to that. Just sorry, one more
No,
comment.
go ahead. Go ahead.
To me, it goes to that wellness piece as well, that ritual. When I lay down my name badge, I know that those stresses can, whatever I encountered during the day, I'm laying that down, knowing that it will be there tomorrow and I can pick it up. But yeah, just the the weight, the weight of the day. So like evening prayer, perhaps. So sorry, Griselle, I'm sorry.
No, thank you. And the last thing I wanted us to probably tackle is that, we, as I was listening to your presentation and the therapeutic lifestyle changes and the definitions. I'm glad that you started with the definition as well. And that idea that the ultimate meaning, purpose, the transcendence, and all of that. I couldn't help but also think about relationships. How is it that it's important that we do foster relationships, and we do know about this um, uh, issue of loneliness and social isolation? How is it that we think in a way are very connected because we have we're able to communicate with people virtually more frequently than before, but in reality at times then when it's actual relationship fostering, then it's not that rich. So yeah, I don't know what to ask, but I just kept going back to the importance then also to relationships in order for us to not only have that ultimate meaning, that transcendence, but also to enjoy all those different types of spirituality, not in isolation.
I was thinking about that in the context of both the Idler research and Stan's focus on, altruism or community spirituality. And I had a lot of conversations with people lately of, if the church is truly declining, if organized religion, and this is the talk, is truly declining, will those other community opportunities where we find that we have the same passion for whatever it is, Stan, give me an example, that community might build that same type of benefit. So that's just one thought I had. And
that always hits me when I see people that every once in a while there will be where they're cleaning up the lakeshore, picking up stuff along the river or along the lake, and that sense of community, everybody working together to beautify this area. I think that there's something really powerful in that community.
It is that sense of relationship and common goal or common purpose, to use one of those words from the definition.
Or singing in a choir. My wife sings in a couple of choirs, and when I listen to that group, it's one voice. It's all these voices coming together, and that's one of the things I love about choral music.
Okay, I have one question from our YouTube listeners. What is the best spiritual practice for moving from stress to peace in the moment?
Dan, any thoughts?
What is the best spiritual practice?
I don't know about the best, but there are from stress to peace. Sometimes it's sitting down and lighting that candle. And again, we're back to ritual. I tend to be big on rituals myself, and then lighting the candle or taking a piece of some incense, or sometimes it can just be just sitting, taking a deep breath, and feeling the gratitude for that breath. the chance, the gift of breath that we are given. It doesn't have to be something big. It can be just sit. That's one of the things when I studied Tai Chi. I've done Tai Chi for like 50 years. And my first Tai Chi teacher was someone who was Chinese and didn't speak much English at all. In fact, the way you learned Tai Chi from him is you watched him. And I remember I asked him about meditation. And he looked at me and said, "Oh, just sit." And I thought, okay, I think that there's more to this. Well, what do you mean by that? Just sit. And we went through this about 5 times. And he said the same thing every time. Just sit.
The lost art.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Sometimes go to scripture. Go to the scripture. Scripture is good for healing.
Amen.
Very much.
Thank you. I'll read 2 additional comments before we wrap up. I enjoy feeling small and losing myself in the cosmos. That losing myself actually connects me to it all. Reminds me of my duty to do better, to be grateful. I spent years being angry at religion, all of them. And then one day I saw that there were many roads to God, Allah, the divine. And so it gave me reverence for the different roads we all take.
One
Our
light, many
actions-
windows.
Yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful. Our actions are the ultimate manifestation. And the last one, I was recently introduced toward spiritualism, picture meditation through a colleague, Theo. The action of putting myself into a picture of being curious about what is happening reconnected me to my humanness and empathy. I left feeling calm and connected to others in the world. It was really impactful.
Thank you for sharing that.
Beautiful relationship. Also, one of my favorite songs says in Spanish, there are those who pray by singing and there are those who grow quiet. And that's their form of prayer. Thank you for that, Yesenia. Oh my goodness, I could spend more time with you. This has been fabulous. Thank you so much for giving us also the list of the ways in which we can foster spirituality between exercise, nutrition, time in nature, relationships, recreation, service to others, and the prompt. So I want even those that are here live to go back and watch the recordings and then experience that again and expand your menu of things so that your overall health and well-being is fostered day to day. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you so much, Stan. It was a great pleasure to have you and to get us started in a very important conversation with ourselves.
Thank you very much.
You. Thank you for the opportunity.
Our pleasure. Hannah, thank you so much for putting this program together. And now we're gonna go and let our colleagues know or viewers know about what is coming up for Rush Generations. I think I got it. Yes, I do. Okay. The first one is take charge of your diabetes, which is a 6-week free workshop for people with diabetes, type 2 diabetes, in which the participants build skills and gain confidence to help them manage their health and encourage them to lead an active, fulfilling life. This interactive program is a good way to meet new people, share experiences, and as you learn how to better manage your diabetes. It meets the class once a week for 6 continuous weeks for 2.5 hours. Believe me, that time goes by very quickly, so don't be discouraged by that. The next workshop will be held on the Rush campus on Friday, starting July 26th through September 6th from 10 to 12:30. We hope that you can join us. As always, to register, call us at 1-800-757-0202. And then another evidence-based program that we offer is Learning to Live Well with Chronic Pain. This is a toolkit, telephonic toolkit. So it's a different modality, but it's also evidence-based. It's also 6 weeks, and it's for individuals living with chronic pain, in which they engage in discussions, skill building activities to better cope with the day-to-day management of chronic pain. Those that participate in this telephonic toolkit receive a workbook, a CD, and a book to help guide them through independent learning activities, which will be accompanied by a weekly check-in conference call. So give us a call. The next workshop will be held via phone on Wednesday, starting August 7th, so coming up through September 11th from 10 to 11. That's the 1-hour conference call. Again, the number to call us for registration is 1-800-757-0202. Mindfulness 101 is coming back. So this 4-week session teaches participants simple mindfulness skills to improve self-awareness and their ability to manage daily stresses or cope with chronic conditions. The next class will be held also in person at the Rush campus. It's on Thursday, starting August 8th through August 29 for an hour and a half, 1:30 to 3. We are gonna have 1 week virtually because of some traffic arrangements that are gonna be significantly affected here in Chicago on that week, but nevertheless, a great class. And the number to call again, 1-800-757-0202. Then Shellman Senior Voices continues to be present and available to you. We want to learn from you, and this program aims to empower older adults to discuss what matters most to them as they age. It is important to share what matters most to you with your loved ones, with your physician. It's a pretty neat way of getting that into a video. So please consider sharing your wisdom on why it is important to your healthcare team and your loved ones to know your goals and wishes and what matters most to you. So you can scan the QR code to record on a mobile device or a smartphone, and you can even do it around today's topic. Feel free to go there, how this lecture was connected to your values, to what is most important to you, to your ultimate meaning, to your purpose. We will love to hear that. And then the next lecture is going to be next week. It's going to be on summer safety, and we hope that you will be joining us. It's again on a Wednesday at 1 p.m. We hope to see you then. Thank you so much for joining us today. And again, if you need to speak with one of our social workers or more information on our programs, feel free to always give us a call at 1-800-757-0202.